Hello again, everyone, and thank you for joining us for this Saturday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm meteorologist Dave Percy. On the hazardous weather graphic, we've got another advisory appeared. Thought we were going to make it through the day today without them, but they've got one out here for the Kobuk Valley and specifically the area north of Ambler, and a wind advisory out for wind gusts above 40 miles an hour. And that remains out through 6 p.m. Sunday, tomorrow. And actually a pretty windy day here, like western Arctic coast down to Point Hope area, and kind of breezy over the interior. So this isn't the only place getting the winds, but that's where the advisory is at. Otherwise, no watches, warnings, or advisories anywhere else in the state. Next graphic here, fire weather again, and back to no significant fire danger. That's good news. And for the satellite imagery, we had, as it looked like it was going to yesterday, moisture came up late last night and early this morning, brought the first snowfall to Anchorage since February 21st. I didn't realize we went the entire month of March without getting any snowfall here in Anchorage, but evidently we did, and got some this morning. And that's, of course, ended and melted off now. But just enough there, really not really heavy amounts, just a few hundredths of an inch water equivalent with that, and really nothing up here in the upper Tanana Valley on up to the northeast there, just kind of a high mid-cloud pattern. Another batch of moisture sliding eastward here, just clipping the Cordova area, and reporting station near Cordova picked up half an inch of rain today. Otherwise, Kodiak, more favorable area there. They picked about a little over 0.8 of an inch of precipitation. And the southeast coast here, kind of in between, a few isolated showers here over the northern areas, dry in the central panhandle. And then you got some moisture with yet another weak band of moisture coming northward there across Dixon Entrance. That'll be spreading some light rain up into the southern areas later tonight. Otherwise, kind of a below zero day, a little below zero up there on the Arctic coast with mostly clear skies. Fog was pretty isolated up in that area. And a little more extensive here, light snow and flurries from the Bering Strait down in towards St. Lawrence Island with gusty winds. Gusty winds also up along the western capes there, about 50 miles an hour and about 35 miles an hour across St. Lawrence Island. Otherwise, nothing going on out over the Bering Sea, just a lot of low clouds here with some showers scattered in. The chilly air coming southward on the northerly winds, not all that strong once you get south of St. Lawrence Island. Really a pretty light wind, no precipitation kind of day out across all of the Aleutians. You see the cirrus shield with an X system, but that's going to be sliding by to the east. And this band of moisture here, that's going to push westward and actually kind of make a more persistent narrow band of light rain or snow. There'll be a little persistent and kind of linger through tomorrow here, but it'll be west of Cook Inlet and the Susitna Valley. On the chart today, dashed it in right there, and that's where most of the precipitation occurred from the Alaska Range on down to the south over toward the western Alaska Range is where it shifted to. And then from Kodiak Island with the east-southeast flow here off the Gulf of Alaska, of course, along the coast range, that's where the heaviest precipitation was, but not all that heavy. And just some scattered rain and snow showers actually falling on Alaska today, becoming more scattered out toward Adak and Atka. But there was a little moisture with that wind flow over the open waters of the Bering Sea and then interacting with the terrain and producing some scattered showers. Not so much over the Pribilof Island stage, just clouds there. But you can see mostly sunny skies here for Bristol Bay, Nunivak Island, in across Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta, and back on up toward the Brooks Range. And the southeast coast, again, real weak trough here. That brought continuing some rain today, this afternoon. Seward up into Portage and over at, of course, Whittier. Otherwise, isolated showers in the Panhandle. Here's that next batch, kind of a trough through here, actually swinging northward, and we'll see for tonight. That trough comes north and weakens as well, although in this position it's really not much weaker than it is right now. And this system down here looks a lot more impressive than it actually is. Yeah, warm front there, and that'll spread yet another surge of rain, a short break in between the two, and also maybe some clearing for Yakutat, but generally a dry night tonight up into the eastern interior areas. Isolated rain or snow showers here depending on your elevation and the time of the overnight hours here for the Kuskokwim Valley. And it looks like kind of a continuous light rain pattern for southern Cook Inlet down to Fognak Island. Flurries possible with patchy areas of fog, Arctic coast, mostly central eastern north slope on out to the Arctic coast with that east-northeast wind flow. And opposite there, offshore flow make for clear skies, but still pretty gusty winds, 40 to 50 miles an hour up here, western Brooks Range on out to the northwest coast. And this system sliding south, passing the Aleutians by, so it'll be a dry night. And may nudge some moisture far enough north tomorrow to clip Adak and Atco with maybe a brief shot at some light rain or snow. And that's about it. Wind's not a problem at all. You can see no gradient here over the southeast Bering or even the eastern Aleutians. Kind of a weak ridge through here. Could be some partial clearing. And then there'll be a kind of a persistent band of light snow or snow showers here from the eastern Brooks Range along this boundary on down into Bristol Bay. Scattered showers or isolated showers, Kodiak Island. Dry here over the eastern interior. Maybe some clearing for Cook Inlet. Chance of showers kind of unsettled for the North Gulf Coast. And periods of light rain, cloudy skies, drizzly for the Panhandle. Winds a little gusty out along and off the coast, but nothing too serious. And then the forecast for Monday, looking like this, another trough slips on up and brings more rain, light rain, more showery down toward the southern southeast coast. But periods of light rain or showers here all along the North Gulf Coast. Back in toward, again, Fognak Island, maybe Cook Inlet. That'll affect Kodiak earlier on, like today. And west central interior, not too bad. Maybe some snow, Brooks Range, North Slope on out to the eastern Arctic coast, maybe light snow. IFR flying will probably be the biggest result of that, as well as through the Bering Strait to St. Lawrence Island. Light winds and the flurries not amounting to much at all. Isolated showers over the Bering Sea with cloudy skies. A weak system makes for rain for the eastern Aleutians into the Alaska Peninsula. And this one out here farther to the west looks like it's staying to the south at least through Monday evening. Low temperatures for tomorrow morning, 4 to 10 above here for the Arctic coast into the North Slope. And south of the mountains, markedly warmer, lower 30s there for the Koyukuk, Upper Yukon valleys. And actually, I think these are the highs for tomorrow afternoon. Well, I apologize for that. Let's see what's up next. Sunday afternoon, yeah, it got overwritten. Lows tomorrow morning, not much different from what you saw today. Highs tomorrow, upper 40s to lower 50s, south central Alaska, and 45 to 50 in the Panhandle, lower 30s for the Pribilofs. And then your lows Monday morning, and this will be almost a repeat of what you'll see tomorrow here with upper 20s to mid 30s, southern Alaska, teens to lower 20s, Tanana Valley, 5 to 10 or 0 to 5 below for the Arctic coast, and your highs back into the lower 50s over the Tanana Valley.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Flying weather for tomorrow morning, nothing but a marginal VFR out here over the Bering Sea to the Aleutians, and mostly marginal VFR into the interior. Got some IFR here. Kuskokwim Valley, Shelikof Strait a little bit, North Slope on out to the Arctic coast, and marginal VFR for the southeast coast. Sunday afternoon shaping up like this, marginal VFR there, turning or becoming IFR, Lynn Canal Glacier Bay, as moisture lifts northward and increases. And marginal VFR across the Copper River Basin, on down into the Gulf of Alaska, westward, across all of the western interior here, all of the Bering Sea, all of the Aleutians. IFR up there over the North Slope. Well, actually, looks like maybe the northern Koyukuk, Kobuk Valley areas, and then across the mountains on out to the eastern Beaufort Sea coast. And some VFR there along the northwest coast due to those gusty northeast winds. And for Monday morning, IFR a little more widespread here from the Brooks Range on out to the central and eastern Beaufort Sea coast. VFR, though, breaking out with those northeast winds. from possibly Kotzebue on up to Cape Lisburne and maybe Point Ley into the Bering Strait. Otherwise, no change here. Marginal VFR mostly. There'll be some breaks out there, but overall be mostly marginal for the Aleutians, Bering Sea. Bristol Bay, southern, the Gulf of Alaska, southern Alaska right up into the interior. North of the eastern Alaska Range, across the upper Tanana Valley, 40-mile country. Best chance of seeing any VFR Monday morning. And for Monday afternoon, just a narrow slot here from about that area westward across the Tanana Valley, north of the mountains there, and then back to the northwest on out toward Kivalina, maybe Point Hope. To the north and northeast, marginal VFR with a little bit of IFR trapped in there along the mountains. IFR holds here over the northern panhandle with marginal conditions all the way down to Dixon Entrance. No change out over the Bering Sea. And the Aleutians, just several days of marginal VFR coming up. And for the passes for tomorrow on Sunday, it looks like Anaktuvik, VFR to start, and then clouds increasing, ceilings visibilities lowering throughout the day to possibly IFR in the latter part of the afternoon. That same trend also for Adigan, with moisture coming up from the south. And Lake Clark and Merrill, marginal VFR at times mostly. And for rainy, same forecast. Looks like a marginal VFR kind of day for that pass as well, but windy. Good VFR tomorrow. Be ceilings, and there'll be ceilings, but should be significantly above the marginal threshold. And for Isabel, VFR becoming marginal in the afternoon, kind of an increase in moisture again sliding up to the north-northwest. But Mentasta, you have a threat of some marginal VFR in the southern entrance. Otherwise, it will remain open for that pass. And Tanita, VFR through the pass. Again, there'll be clouds, but I think marginal VFR will be hung up over the mountains here to the south of the pass route. And for the Portage forecast, looks not too bad, not that great, but kind of marginal. Chilkoot and White, marginal VFR and moisture lifting northward in the afternoon could bring it down to IFR conditions there. And for freezing levels here, 2,000 feet, right up the eastern or the western side of the Alaska Range here, Kuskokwim Valley, and then back down to the North Gulf Coast. Much of the Panhandle, 2,000 feet or better, and cooler air out over the Bering Sea, a couple of troughs. So we got the surface back down just south of the Pribilofs, and but staying north of the Aleutians. Icing, kind of a band of just a slight chance of some light to isolated moderate rime here in this band extending up to the eastern Arctic coast, and also a better chance here over the southeast coast. It'll be mostly isolated moderate, but could be a zone of considerable moderate lifting up into the Elfin Cove area. And for the jet stream, main jet well to the south here, the strongest jet across the Pacific. We've got several upper lows here, so kind of a slack flow over the Bering Sea and the Aleutians. Upper low in the Gulf, 70-knot winds, really not all that strong into the Panhandle. And at 9,000 feet east, 10 to 20 or 15 to 25, turn northeast up to 35 or 25 to 35 for the Chukchi Sea. Light winds with this low here off the southwest coast, and the stronger winds will be off the Panhandle. See 40 to 50 knots. 3,000 feet, much the same pattern there, about 40 to 45 along and off the coast of the Panhandle, maybe 20 to 30 with this low, but light for the Aleutians, and turbulence, moderate chop up there in the northwest coast, Shelikof Strait and the Panhandle.
Welcome back to another edition of Alaska Weather Facts. I'm meteorologist Dave Snider, and joining me once again is Eric Stevens from the Geographic Information Network of Alaska, or GINA, based at the University of Alaska Fairbanks. Eric, welcome back to the show.
Well, Dave, it's great to be back. Thanks for inviting us again.
Sure thing. And today we want to talk about identifying burn scars. That would be the burned up area after a wildfire when the flames and the smoke are gone. We can see it if you drive by it on the roadway, of course, but from satellite, we can also identify those places on the land, right?
You know it. You know that expression, ouch, that's going to leave a mark?
Yeah.
After you bang your knee getting out of the car.
Oh yeah.
Well, the ouch, it's going to leave a mark, that also applies to the landscape. Whenever a wildfire ravages through, it's going to leave a mark on the landscape. After a wildfire burns out, this is called a burn scar.
Okay.
And you can ask yourself, well, that's interesting. We can see a burn scar from space. Right. Then the question is, well, why does that matter?
Okay.
Who cares?
Yeah, fire's over.
Right, the fire is over. We don't need to worry about this anymore. It turns out you kind of do, because burn scars are important. There's this old rule of thumb in the weather business that flood follows fire. The action of the fire in killing off the vegetation, in baking, kiln drying the landscape a little bit, can hinder the land's ability to absorb rainfall. So if you have a fire, especially if it's in complex mountainous terrain. This is classic in California. It can happen somewhat in Alaska too. You get a wildfire in steep, hilly, or mountainous terrain, rips off all the vegetation off the landscape. Then 6 months later, there's a big rainstorm, and you get a flash flood in that area. So flood can follow fire. That's why you got to know where the burn scars are. Secondly, a fire needs fuel to maintain itself. So if there's an old burn scar left over from a year or two ago, and then another summer later here in Alaska in the interior, it's a big wildfire season. If there's a fire advancing toward an old burn scar, well, guess what? That old burn scar is going to be tougher terrain for that new fire to get through, because there's not as much fuel in that burn scar. So they almost act like a natural fire break. These are a couple of reasons why you need to know where those burn scars are. Alaska Fire Service has limited resources. They want to put their people and their equipment where it does the most good. They need to know, well, this is an area where there's no burn scar. We better put people here because that fire could really run.
So really important for weather forecasters and fire weather forecasters for sure.
Oh yeah.
But then how do weather satellites actually detect those burn scars?
Good question.
Thanks.
Well, let's turn the Wayback Machine to the summer of 2015. That was a very active year. We've got a picture here taken up in the White Mountains. This is one of the fires in progress that summer, and if you look real close, you can almost see Frodo throwing the ring into the volcano there. So that's quite the vision. Well, let's look at a visible image. Here we are in Alaska's interior. This is before the fires got out of the cage in early summer of 2015. Let's zoom into the western interior here. Again, this is a weather satellite image of visible light, what the human eye can see. We're into the middle reach of the Yukon Valley there in the western interior, Galena area. And this is just a beautiful visible day. Nothing much going on. It's in early June before the fires really got active. But then in 2015, the fires got loose, especially in that western interior. Here's another image. The same satellite pass as that visible image, but now we're not quite looking at visible light.
Very different.
There's a slight change here. This image incorporates something called the veggie band. 0.86 micron wavelength. The micron's very tiny, but that wavelength responds to vegetation, the chlorophyll. So trees and grasses reflect that part of the electromagnetic spectrum back to the satellite. And so the satellite sees that. When signal comes at that wavelength to the satellite, we know, there's some vegetation growing there. This is great. You can identify coastlines so easily because you go from vegetation to water. Turns out if you have a burn scar, guess what? You burned away the vegetation, so that's going to show up. We're going to do a before, during, and after kind of look here. And so we're looking at before. So in this image, we got a lot of green out there. That's wonderful. Another fun thing about this kind of imagery is you can see down in the Alaska Range in the southeast corner of the image, it's blue. That's glaciers and snow in the mountains. So this is not really what the human eye can see. This is these wavelengths are beyond human vision, but we've made them look certain colors. So the vegetation looks green. Now let's look at that same kind of satellite recipe, but during the fires. This is in July. The fires are loose. You can see the smoke in the middle of the image, the smearing look of the smoke, and then we can see some clouds that are white. Icy clouds are blue. So this is in July of 2015. The fires are doing their thing. We're burning up millions of acres. Now let's go to September. The fires are out. The audience has left the theater. You know, the event's over, right? We're done. But guess what? Now look at those brown patches.
Look at that.
All of those places are where the fire has burned away the vegetation. So you can see where the fires were. You can add up these perimeters, get acreage burned and such. And so that's good to know. Now remember, flood follows fire, and these are also natural fire breaks. So you need to know where these guys are. In the course of the 2015 summer season, we went from before with not much burn scar in this area to just a couple months later, we can see so much burn scarring on the landscape. What's interesting too about the satellite and looking at burn scars is you realize that burn scars are the gift that keeps on giving. You can forget that a couple of years ago maybe there was a fire in a certain area, but the satellite won't forget. So in the summertime we get wildfires in Alaska, but guess what? In the visible imagery here we can see the burn scars just a little bit, but they're not as prominent as in that veggie band. But then you can't see them at all if you cover them up with snow, right?
Exactly.
So here's an image from the middle of the winter time.
Wow.
And snow on the ground by this recipe looks blue. Again, these are wavelengths of light that the human eye can't really see. We're getting up into the infrared, near infrared. And the way we've assigned colors is if there's snow on the ground or there's a glacier, it looks blue, kind of intuitive. So this is early April of the following year, 2016.
Okay.
We're just about to get into breakup. We've got a lot of snow on the ground, and now it's all going to melt. And as the snow melts, then you get our final image here. Doesn't this look familiar? This looks like a lot of what we saw in September of the previous summer. So this is the spring of the next year. The fires themselves might not have overwintered, they're gone, but the fire scar does. And as the snow melts away, and then you have breakup, and then you have green up, whenever the leaves come out, the grass comes back, except in the burned areas, they're having a tough time because everything got burned off the previous year. So you can see these scars even the next summer, multiple years. It depends on what kind of vegetation there is. You know, some of the tussocky tundra grasses, they'll grow back really quick, but to get a forest to come back, that'll take much longer. So these burn scars, eventually the landscape will fill in the burn scar. It will heal itself, if you want to use that metaphor. But for the next few years, you can still keep track of these on satellite. And again, the reason we want to do that is that the burn scar can facilitate a flood, and it can act like a fire break. So there you are, the veggie
Fascinating
band.
tools. So if you're a weather satellite and you're looking at my bowl of vegetables here, you might be able to pick out which one's the pea, which one's the tomato, and which one's the carrot, and apply that information precisely to whatever it is you're working on there. That is really fascinating stuff, that we have that capability from so high above the planet Earth, and Alaska for that matter.
Yep,
Eric?
eat your veggies.
Yes, definitely. I think I will. I'm hungry. Thanks so much for joining us again, Eric, and thank you for joining us for another edition of Alaska Weather Facts. We'll see you right here next time.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back. Today's sea ice analysis showing a little bit, if you laid them next to each other, you'd see a little bit of a progression to the south and a little bit of an increase in concentrations here, especially north of the Bering Strait. And it looks like that sort of pattern is going to continue for the next 4 or 5 days. And moving on to coastal water forecasts here, good south 30-knot winds on the south coast tomorrow, and southeast turning east here for the north coast, and those seas running 13 to 16 feet. Small craft advisories for Clarence Strait, 25-knot winds out of the southeast. Then we got southeast 15, gusts 35 there for Stevens Passage, and just sustained 15 knots for Lynn Canal. And then for Monday, those kick up to 25 knots there for the Lynn Canal with 5-foot seas. Otherwise, southeast 20 here for the central and southern inside waters. The central areas, Stevens Passage still seeing gusts of 35 knots. Southwest 25, 15-foot seas on the south coast, and south 20 knots on the central coast. Back to small craft advisory, 25-knot winds on the north coast. Prince William Sound, northeast 15 tomorrow, seas slide at 2 feet. East 25, turn northeast 25 here for the western North Gulf Coast into the Barren Islands. Kamishak Bay, northeast 20, but still carrying 25-knot winds in southern Cook Inlet. Moving on to Monday, northeast 15 here north of the Forelands, and southern Cook Inlet north at 20. Northeast 15 there for Kamishak Bay, and light southeast winds at 15 for the Barren Islands. East 20, western North Gulf Coast, and then eastern zones there, southeast at 25 with 10 to 12-foot seas. Prince William Sound coming up a little bit, east 20 with 4-foot seas. Kodiak Island, northeast winds tomorrow, 20 knots, sustained with 5 to 11-foot seas. And then Sitkinak Castle Cape, north at 15, and kind of a light variable wind pattern setting up here for the Alaska Peninsula, 5 to 15 knots, and light winds also for Bristol Bay. And then those turn west at 10 for Bristol Bay, so we still have this kind of light variable wind pattern now, even lighter for Monday coming up here for the Alaska Peninsula. And then from Castle Cape to Sitkinak, southwest 20, and then that turns south at 20 up the east side of Kodiak Island with light westerly winds in Shelikof Strait. Fox Islands tomorrow, kind of north to northwest, give or take there, 10 to 15 knot breeze with 4 to 7-foot seas. Central Aleutians, east 10 to 15 and northeast 15 out west. So really light wind pattern continues here out over the Aleutian chain. And we'll bring it up to 20 knots here from Kiska, or west of Kiska, out to Shimian at 2 for Monday. Otherwise, southwest 10 to 15, variable 10 to 15 knot winds for the Fox Islands, with seas down 2 feet there north of Unalaska Island, otherwise 7 to 8 feet south of the islands. And for the southwest coast tomorrow, south of Nunivak Island, north winds at 15, northeast 15 here, increase to 20 knots out towards St. Matthew Island. The Perbolos, light winds from the southeast, and a good stiff 30-knot breeze continues there for St. Lawrence Island, but Norton Sound down to 15 knots. And then for Monday, northeast 25, St. Lawrence Island, north 15 north of Nunivak Island, and conditions get kind of light and variable south there, west into Kuskokwim Bay at 10, Perbeloff southeast at 10, northeast 20 for St. Matthew Island. And up along the eastern Beaufort Sea coast, looks like we've got northeast winds at 15 knots, and that extends all the way to the central coast and come around the bend here, and you pick it up to 20 knots from Cape Beaufort on down to Wales, 30-knot winds out of the north-northeast. Outlook for Monday, no change there. We've got northeast winds of 30 knots from Wales up to Cape Beaufort, west side of the Arctic coast, northeast 20, and light winds on the central and east side to west at 15 toward demarcation points. And for tonight, this froth will bring rain into the southern areas this evening and slowly shift northward and then taper off. But you got another round coming in right behind it with that warm front. Periods of light rain, southern Kenai Peninsula, Fognak Island. Isolated snow showers here, western Alaska Range in the Kuskokwim Valley. Flurries up along the north, or the central and eastern North Slope and Arctic coast, but a wind advisory for Kobuk Valley north of Ambler for gusts above 40 miles an hour, and still could see 50-mile-an-hour wind gusts up here along the northwest coast. Breezy, but gradual diminishing of the wind there for St. Lawrence Island through the strait. Nothing going on in the Bering Sea, and that continues through tomorrow as well. Another system here kind of tries to kick the winds up along the southeast coast, but they stay under gale force. More periods of light rain. A little drier here, south central Alaska. Light precipitation along this boundary to the west, and the outlook for Monday, more rain for the North Gulf Coast.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.